Hey fellow gamers, Chatty Sisa here. The hype for Crimson Desert has grown almost exponentially over the last couple of days, the closer we are coming to the release date, but the game devs don't want to call the game an RPG. They're clearly stating it's an open-world action-adventure game. So let's summarize based on the information that we have so far, what the game actually is and what it isn't, and what you should expect from it. During the past weeks, Will Powers from Pearl Abyss has probably done more interviews than I can count and provided us with lots of new information. At the same time, the Crimson Desert YouTube channel released a few bits with additional details like in-game features or combat that should help us get a better picture. I will link, of course, some of the vids as usual in the description below, but I'd highly recommend to watch also the older boss battles and gameplay vids on the Crimson Desert YouTube channel if you want to decide for yourself whether the game is worth buying or not. The topics are summarized together under specific video chapters, which you can also find in the description, so feel free to jump into the section that interests you the most. Right up front, I'll make here a lot of comparisons to The Witcher 3 during the vid, and I want to highlight I mean it in a very positive way. For me, so far, Crimson Desert looks like a game that learned from the best and most enjoyable features from other successful open-world games and also inevitably RPGs, and used that recipe for creating a very interesting, extensive and fun-to-play fantasy game. Let's start with the characters and customization. We have Cliff as the predetermined protagonist, a warrior from the Greymanes clan. The Greymanes are considered to be Pywell's peacekeepers, but at the start of the game the clan is attacked by a rival clan, the Black Bears, and your goal is to rebuild the clan, upgrade and expand your new home camp, and ultimately reclaim your homeland. But there are two other playable characters which will be unlocked later as you progress through the story, and you can play a large portion of the game as those two characters too. Here I'm wondering how much you'll be able to explore when not playing as Cliff specifically, and how much of the main storyline is tied just to him. Those additional characters are having their own combat styles, skills and weapons. One is an orc, the other one a woman. But the game is not having a standard character creator, and you can't choose the looks of the characters in terms of facial structure, their gender or body type. However, I have to point out that in general the characters in the game look all great, and I really appreciate especially the not uglified women here. What you can do is customize the playable characters via haircuts, dyes, tattoos, skills, playstyles, gear, armor and weapons, but not creating an entirely new person per se. It's not the same as the character creator in Black Desert, Pearl Abyss's online MMORPG. However, from what I've seen, I'm quite happy with the wide array of choices. It'll allow us all to create our own unique Cliffs, if you will, even without a standard custom character creator. Are the facial expressions always on point, or the famous hair physics some players do pay big attention to? Certainly not, but considering everything we know about this game and its features, these are definitely not the most important aspects, and I wouldn't expect perfection in superficial things like this. That is not what the game is about. The voice acting here seems very good. You might even recognize some familiar VA voices, especially considering that for the Greymanes, mainly Scottish actors or voice actors can be heard, which are often found also in other games. And I'll be honest, I've spent a good portion of an evening googling the voice actors because they're not yet officially listed. But I can't shake the feeling I've seen and heard some of the VAs, and especially the main VA, just very recently somewhere, and I just can't put my finger on it where exactly. So, if you manage to figure out his name, let me know please.
Gian has fallen, and with the great leader's death, our land, Paloon, once unified, has been plunged into chaos. And now, a bloody battle unfolds between the Greymanes, who fight to uphold his will, and the Black Bear forces that seek to set it aflame.
There is naturally some leveling and progression within the game, but not in the standard RPG way as per the studio's own words. However, we start out with limited abilities and equipment, and as we progress during the game, we'll become more powerful and skilled. I'd say this is actually a standard RPG progression so far, but that's just my own impression. There are artifacts which unlock new skills and upgrades, including increasing your health and stamina, so it's crucial looking for and gathering those. They can either be in the possession of powerful bosses or hidden across the continent. Observing people and areas will increase your knowledge and skills as well, not just finding the mentioned artifacts. You can then, for example, glide longer in the air or improve your grappling abilities. Because of all the options, I see a huge potential here to create your own individual playstyle. The combination of all the skills, abilities, weapons and other gear are not limited to specific classes, if I understood correctly, and here's where I think it does deviate from the classic RPGs. Don't forget to customize your equipment regularly, for example with additional special effects. Which also means don't forget to gather useful ingredients and resources across Pywell. There will be plenty of side quests and extra missions for that, and when and in which order you decide to do those is completely up to you. Many of these quests will have to do with the various in-game factions or organizations, and some will be friendly, others hostile towards you. The side quests range from small tasks to bigger objectives, and to be honest, I'm having again a feeling that a lot of it was inspired by The Witcher 3. There are some small fortresses which have to be liberated, this time not from monsters but the already mentioned hostile forces, and this way you can free certain areas which will then spawn, for example, new merchants or resources. What I appreciate here is that we'll see real changes in the world in areas we've already dealt with, by making them more safe for your travel. So it's good to know now that your actions have a lasting impact on Pywell and make you feel like you've really accomplished something. Unlike with some other games where we often see parts of the world return to some predefined default state after a specific point in the game, or areas with fast enemy respawn, which make you feel like all your effort is good for nothing. Speaking of that, let's talk about the game's setting a bit. As already mentioned in my previous Crimson Desert vid, it's a massive open world game with a map twice the size of Skyrim and bigger than Red Dead Redemption 2, with the full map unlocked right from the start. That means the game will not limit you to specific areas because of your skill level. Think of The Witcher 3 here again as an example of the opposite, where regions are only gradually unlocked on the map. The continent or world we're playing in is called Pywell, with vast open areas but also cities, villages and beautiful landscapes. You can simply cross from one region to another, the maps are not separated in any way, although you shouldn't probably rush to fast forward if you don't have yet some better gear or skills. Well, unless you have a death wish seeing some of the enemies in the gameplay trailers. There are 5 main regions, each distinct in looks, inhabitants and its influence on the continent. The starting region, Hernand, with a temporary Greymane camp, then Peilun, which is the original homeland of your clan, now occupied by the Black Bears, followed by Demenis, where you can find the capital city. Then next is Delija, which stands for Science and Technology, and it's here where you can find the robots, for example, that we have already seen in some of the trailers. And then last but not least is Crimson Desert, based on which the game is named. On top of all that, there's the Abyss. This is not a dark underground area as the name would suggest, but quite the opposite. It's the realm in the clouds, which stands for magic. It's slowly falling apart and fragments of it are raining down to Pywell. We get to explore those, and you'll need some good puzzle-solving skills when you enter the realm to fix it. That's definitely a plus point if you get tired of all the combat. But jokes aside, in general, from what we know, the Abyss is playing a key role in the game as there are powerful forces which set it off balance, and that in the end will be the larger plot that we're supposed to uncover with Cliff in the game, aside from reuniting the Greymanes and reclaim their homeworld. Various races occupy Pywell's region, and we could see quite a few already in the released features with. For me, it'll be important to see how empty or lived in the world feels like also outside of the cities, and how the fast travel will really work. Especially when we heard it's going to be a bit limited and not all over the map. By the way, for that you'll have to find circular abyss teleports on the map. Which brings me to exploration and combat. Those are clearly three-dimensional with great emphasis on vertical movements, which gives more options to you in both of these aspects of the game. I'm sure you'll be able to spend endless hours just on the exploration part alone this way. Traversing Pywell is having many options, and Cliff can even climb or glide through the air. For me, the most funny ones seem to ride a bear or a dragon. It sure does have an advantage of additional combat options, unlike a horse. During your exploration you can find new, previously unknown, points of interest. There's a lot of hidden secret areas that have interesting loot or great vantage points, mechanical puzzles, and so on. I'm quite sure there'll be soon enough plenty of guides online on how to find the best loot and weapons. But back to the combat. There's a vast array of weapons you can use. Sword and shield, spears, greatswords, axes, dual-wielding swords, bows, magic spells, and some, like for example firearms or long-range weapons, are even available through the 2 additional playable characters. I've noticed the female protagonist uses those, for example, and this is more how I like it, to be honest, so it looked very intriguing to me. Aside from that, in terms of melee, you can grab or toss your opponents, you can jump up into the air and float and attack your opponents from above. As previously mentioned, the verticality of this game is a great feature and will add a lot to the unique combat or exploration styles and your mobility during fights. You'll be able to use mechs as well, which we've seen already in the previous trailers. But my guess is only at a later stage in the game, maybe once you reach the region of Delija. Not gonna lie, that one mech with the capability of firing missiles in the features with looked almost cruel to be used towards your enemies, they were just obliterated. Often you'll have to face multiple opponents at once, and from the looks of it, you really have to watch your back. You definitely have to combine both offensive and defensive skills. Elemental skills are available to us too, so we can burn, freeze or stun our opponents. Our opponents might be human, mechanical or magical, so the variety here is just as broad as your own skill set or potential gear. Winning over some of the bosses in the game will grant you their special abilities or bonuses. That's definitely a worthy reward if you decide to battle against a strong enemy. Overall, the combat looks brutal and exhausting, but all the more fun to be played. The exploration is non-linear, and with everything unlocked on the map from the start, it's up to you when, where and how much you want to discover and investigate. One thing's for sure, this game does not limit you in many ways as maybe a standard RPG would. There are of course other gameplay mechanics and features I would like to point out. Aside from talking to other characters, we could see in one part of the new gameplay vid also the option to threaten someone. I'm wondering if we get different options for when we meet, for example, familiar characters, and understanding the dialogue system, its options and impact on the game will be crucial for those players who want to focus more on the story aspect of the game rather than combat or exploration. Gaming Bolt has mentioned that there are constellations in the sky to be observed, and we just don't know yet for what purpose. But I'd say their guess on having to find the respective real-world counterparts in Paiwell could be true. Just think of the likes of ancient Egypt, where buildings were aligned with some constellations in the night sky. Speaking of the night sky, I have to say I've loved seeing it in some of those vids. It's absolutely beautiful. And I also like how much you can interact with your surroundings and the environment, which is fantastic, including details like petting dogs, cutting trees, fishing, and so on. It makes the whole world feel much more alive rather than just a static background. Cliff can use something I'm calling the Witcher senses. It does look cool, and we've seen this type of feature already in multiple games. I have to say I like the additional benefits of such skills. You'll be able to expand and upgrade your Greymane camp with additional features. You can cook food and purchase provisions. And oops, I see myself running out of those already on the way because of not thinking about it. If I'm not mistaken, the cooking here works similar like, for example, in Larian's Divinity series, where the food you've made yourself give you a much bigger boost than unprocessed or bought meals. So it looks like I'll be gathering the recipes here in the game for sure. All of this implies very complex mechanics in the background. The Greymane camp, for example, has a ranch and a farm even for your meat and produce. This is seriously getting crazy with all of the aspects of the game. I see already hundreds of hours spent in it. So this game is definitely not a purely story-driven RPG where you don't have to think about the mundane things in life, but rather a good old-fashioned fantasy game with all sorts of underlying mechanics that will influence your gameplay. Not sure if everyone's going to appreciate a little farming simulator within a huge open world like this, but you can't say the game doesn't give you any options. You can of course stock up on provisions at the respective vendors in hubs like cities or villages. That includes tailors and blacksmiths for your clothing and gear. Whenever there are other characters you meet and ask to join you, they will go back to that base main camp or remain in its close vicinity. You can dispatch some of the Greymanes to other regions in Paiwell to complete tasks or missions on their own. This will give you currency or resources like wood and ore, or ingredients for alchemy and cooking. Talk to NPCs to acquire additional side quests. This gave me Witcher 1 vibes, where you really had to chat to even the simple passerbys in order to not miss something. Speaking of the Witcher, don't forget to stop by at the notice boards in Crimson Desert 2. It wasn't shown whether we can directly pick up any quests from there, but the game devs have hinted at listening to conversations of the NPCs for more information, and those notice boards seem to be a good gathering spot. And another total Witcher Games impression again was when I've seen the mini-games you can play within Crimson Desert. There are tabletop games in taverns or fistfights, for example, horse races, and so on. The same goes for your character breaking the law. If you break it too many times, you'll have serious trouble traveling unhindered, or you can even end up in jail and serve time there. So much for the free exploration part. So be careful with your actions, they do have consequences. In other words, this game will definitely not coddle you or hold your hand in various ways, which on the other side gives you a great deal of freedom to really personalize it and make it feel like your own story. It'll definitely add also to the replayability of it. So that was a little comparison of some of the key features. I wanted to point out a few of them and compare those to a standard RPG with some of my own impressions, one of the few things I'm still wondering about, aside from the previously mentioned dialogue system, is the inventory management. We've only seen it briefly so far, and the game seems to rely upon gathering a ton of resources quite heavily. So the question here is, for example, how the inventory overflow will be handled. I honestly wouldn't want to repeat, for example, the Witcher-style slow walk when overburdened, or sell my hard-earned assets for some ridiculously low price at a vendor just because my inventory space is currently not big enough. On the other hand, I've also noticed how the camera moves between positions flawlessly, and you seem to be able to zoom in quite closely or watch almost from an isometric view. Just compare a couple of the scenes from the combat and the exploration parts that we've seen. It's another variable feature that should satisfy many players. The saving system is another big question mark for me. Whether it'll be autosaves only, or we can make our own manual saves. Whether those will be only on certain spots available, like the usual fireplaces or fast travel points we're used to from other games, or whether you just hit the save button at any time and can save this way. And I'll be honest, this is the option I'm hoping for with such a vast open world game. Players with multiple platforms will for sure also wonder if there will be any cross-platform saves import and export possible. So I'll keep an eye on any information here on this game feature. Last but not least, the music here in the released Crimson Desert vids is a pleasure to listen to, and I'm looking forward to hearing more for sure. This might be honestly, after a long time, one of the few open world games that will give us a huge play and replay value for years to come, and although I'm already rather reserved with my expectations when it comes to new games, this one is making me count the days until the release, which will be on the 19th of March on the PCs, both Windows and Mac, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. And unlike other €70 or $1 games, this one seems definitely to be worth the money. Let me know if you're also hyped for Crimson Desert and whether you like what we've seen and heard so far. And if you have any reservations, out with it, I want to hear it. Let's chat in the comment section below. And before you leave, if you like the vid, I'd appreciate if you would hit the like button or subscribe. Thank you very much, stay tuned and game on!